Hi everyone, thank you for joining. I'm super excited to introduce you to Darren Mallet. I'm actually going to let you introduce yourself, Darren, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm a software engineer on the sales team at Quest Software. I've been using Foglight for just about 2 decades now, and I'm excited to show you some of the cloud features that we have.
Okay, so this all came from a conversation we had last week, and I was talking about a new study that we have around the state of cloud adoption, modernization strategies, etc., 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 repatriation, and we had a pretty decent conversation around adoption strategies, but from your experience, what you've seen with customers around provisioning and over provisioning, and I was surprised with how common over provisioning is. And so I thought this would be a really nice little video to use Foglight as a centerpiece for that conversation. Are you ready to go, Darren?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Most of the customers I speak to, as they're moving to the cloud, they don't really know, right? They don't know what the performance is going to be, so they tend to over provision to be on the safe side. And that's okay until they start getting the invoices and realize that it can be fairly costly to do that. When you're traditional on-prem, you're concerned more with the user experience. You want to have proper fast running SQL queries, have your databases tuned and so on. That's still important in the cloud, but it has the effect of impacting cost. So if you've over provisioned as a safe starting point, that's fine. But you can follow a process to go through and basically make some incremental improvements by optimizing your environment. And then over time, start to right size your cloud assets, make them the size that they need to be instead of really just, taking a guess. We're going to go with a large size machine or a large size RDS database and see what happens. This way, you can actually get more insight with Foglight and start to tune the environment with the benefit of reducing dollars.
Okay, good. This is outside of the area of Elastic. You know, this is where you kind of it's like, and I can feel it for those program execution where you want to get it right. You don't want to have issues at the very start, so you over provision. So just don't forget to tune as well as time goes by.
Right, exactly. And
You want
Foglight makes it
to
easy.
go ahead?
Foglight makes it easy to follow that process. It's really providing insight above and beyond what the native cloud providers provide. You'll be able to get into your queries, do some optimization, and then see the impact on the cost.
Okay. Shall we have a look?
Yeah, we can jump in. I'm going to pick on SQL Server as it tends to be quite popular, especially with Azure users. But you can see in Foglight, we cover the gamut of different platforms: Sybase, DB2, Oracle, SAP HANA, even some Snowflake is in here. Once you're inside Foglight with that cross domain, cross platform view, what I typically do is look at workload. My background is in performance tuning. I want to see what's happening on the instances in terms of work. I want to be able to easily identify problems, and that tends to lead into areas of improvement. It also gives me that view of what the busiest instances or busiest databases are at the top of my list. The ones that aren't doing much, they fall to the bottom, which is fine. We still need to monitor them, keep track of what's going on. But this one here, this is a good example that we've got. It's actually showing us there was a little bit of an anomaly just around 12:50 p.m. And we've got this blip, and I can tell right away it's an anomaly because Foglight automatically baselines the performance data. So the blue band at the bottom is normal. The mountain range blue line above it is what actually happened. So I can conclude, even if I don't know much about this particular instance, that something odd happened. And from there, it's a simple click. We drill down and we're going to get a view of that history. It's going to show us the highlights. So the SQL statements, the databases, the programs, the users that were responsible for the increase in activity. We can jump into much more detail and start slicing and dicing the data. So maybe we want to drill into the top database, see what that was. We can go right there.
I was wondering where the blip was. There it is. Okay.
Yeah, and we've got it right here on the screen. It's in this Quest OptiNew database, and it gives us all the stats around just that database. We could look at things. Typically, when I see red, like I said, I've been working with Foglight for 20 years, and for that time, lock weight has always been red. We can review the blocking history. So even if these sessions have disappeared, the blocks have gone away, Foglight's going to preserve those. So you can go back historically, see what happened. You could keep drilling down as well. And typically when you're in performance tuning mode, you want to get to the SQL statements fairly quickly. So I want to see the statements that had the most impact, the most active time, the most CPU usage, and so on. I mentioned CPU usage because that's a fairly common one we go after when we are doing tuning within cloud environments. If we can knock down the CPU, we can knock down the cost. We have some tools built in. So one thing I like to know is, has this been an ongoing issue? Does it run regularly? Or did someone come in, maybe run a rogue query? I can do a comparison right down to the individual statement level. And I could see, for example, that this query had this activity today. Yesterday, it didn't do anything. It wasn't run. So we could actually see maybe there's an application, someone running Management Studio, someone running command line, that's doing something that is not typical. They don't typically do this during the day. It gives us a good clue as to what's going on.
You can get this with Cloud Native, right? The Cloud
No,
Native
not at
monitoring.
all. You don't get down into the details within the database. So they'll tell you the resource consumption, they'll tell you what's going on at the VM or the container level. You can get some statistics, fairly high level instance or database level statistics from the cloud native ones, but you're not going to be able to drill down into those poor performing SQL statements. Certainly not compare them to what happened yesterday, last week, last month. That's something that you get with Foglight. Once we jump into tuning mode, my first step was always to run an explain plan. My Oracle background talking, but we can do that right in Foglight. We can get the plan. We can see the details. It'll analyze what's being accessed. We're doing table scans on all our tables to pull data. We can also tell if this plan has ever changed. And Foglight has built-in change tracking. So you can go back in time, you can look at some period and identify if something has happened that maybe impacts the environment. So we actually see just before this activity started to build up in that database, there were a couple changes. There was a database object change. Looks like an index was created. And there was also an execution plan change. And so we can see when the execution plan of any SQL changes, not just what the changes are, but the times that it occurred. We can look at the plan side by side, maybe see what the differences are. So here's a good example. I had a different query where I was doing table scans at 8:36. At 8:50, it switched plans and started using that new index. Now you don't have to come in here and look at the plan changes, the database object changes, et cetera, every day. There's a nice built-in report. And I often use this as a way to let customers know that something happened, right? You can set up this change tracking report. Foglight can deliver reports to a location. So you could set up a Teams channel for reporting, have all these change tracking reports sent there, and the developers could look and see what happened the previous day or the previous hour, however you want to set it up.
Well, I imagine only set it up if there's an issue, if it's performing outside of a certain range. Could you do that?
That's one way to do it, but you never really know when the issues are going to happen. So it's probably best to set it up and then make it part of your process to look at it, review what happened, note any abnormalities via the baseline. There is an associated baseline deviation report. So you could see at a glance, yesterday was fine, we were within the baseline, but this morning we're actually out of it. That would prompt you to come in, perhaps look into the bad database, the bad program, the bad users, and get down to that SQL level.
Sorry, the bad programmers. Did I hear that right?
Bad programs.
Okay, sorry.
Now, once you're there, that's when you can basically turn yourself into a star programmer. We have this built-in tune SQL option. So that SQL was performing poorly. Foglight told me about it. There's no native cloud tools are going to do that. But I could hit tune SQL and come in and get some expert help and actually quantify the improvement I can make. So very quickly, I can just auto-optimize my query. Basically, go get a coffee, whatever you need to do. This is going to rewrite the query for me. And not only that, it's going to execute the queries and return the response times. So we can see my original query, just under 2 seconds or so. We had a bunch of alternatives, some faster, some slower. I got a trophy for the 96th one. This actually went through more than 96. It went through quite a number. And it's all automated. So it actually went through just over 1,000 ways to write that SQL, parsed away the ones that aren't going to make any difference, and then points you right to the winner. This was the fastest one. And you can jump right there. You can see the query, its associated execution plan, but I think more importantly, you can see the execution time dropped quite dramatically, down to 8 milliseconds. Right? And so that ties directly back to the cloud cost.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the cloud cost is compute and storage. Like they're the majority of the costs.
Exactly.
Wow. I should say, by the way, this isn't Gen AI. This is old school Newton Raphson optimization. It's old school cost function optimization. They're just trying different ways of writing that query, and they have a cost function. So it's not Gen AI.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually worked at the startup that brought this technology to market way back in the previous millennium.
Wow.
And we were going to go with the whole AI angle on it when it wasn't even popular, and decided that's probably not wise. And I think if we had done that today, it may have been a $10 billion company, but I digress.
Very good. I'm blown away by that, because that, I mean, if anyone that's watching this is saying 2 seconds down to 8 milliseconds, that was one query. But if you're running those queries thousands of times each day, those costs add up.
Yeah, and we can actually even see that in Foglight. Here's the execution count. In the last 8 hours, that query was run 1,400-ish seconds. You take off 2 seconds every time, and that's going to really make an impact. And then you can wrap the process in some hard numbers. There is a component in Foglight where we could go and look at your cloud environment and see what's going on in terms of cost. So this is what my Azure environment is costing me, my AWS, my Google Cloud environment. There's alarms. We have alarms on the database side for CPU and workload deviations. There's alarms here for cost. You set a cost budget for the month. If you start to exceed it, you get an alert, a different type of alert, but it's all coming from Foglight. And you can go from cost into optimization here. And this is where you keep compounding those gains from optimizing SQL, getting incremental improvements. We could look at resizing some of these VMs. And Foglight pulls the cost models from all those cloud providers. It's going to tell you the savings per month if you were to downgrade, from a standard DS1 V2 to a standard F1S. I have no idea what those are, but it's going to point out exactly what that savings would be based on the actual utilization. So this is the utilization Foglight's observed. It's not some recommendation. I get the AWS Optimizer recommendations pretty much every morning. It's always to increase. You have to put more CPU, put more memory, upgrade this. This is all based on what's going on. And it's going to pull that cost model, like I said, and tell you what those hard dollars are. So this is another way, once you follow the process for a while, get into the optimization on the database side, you can look not just at the database environment in your cloud, but everything, and really see what needs to be done. How can we save money? It's not always saving money, though. Some of these machines, maybe they need a little bit more CPU, some more memory. So it'll actually tell you what the best model to go to is to also optimize the cost. So it's not just some random, we recommend X. It's going to tell you this is what you should go to. This is what it'll be for the new price.
What I really like about this is, and we're kind of coming around full circle to the start of this, where we were talking about people going to the cloud, provisioning in the cloud, and over provisioning in the cloud for safety and performance. And then the cost bills hit, and so on and so forth. What I really like about this is, because you get this with cloud service providers as well, you get the VMs, what's running, how much it's costing. What you don't have is underneath, and being able to improve what's running underneath those queries, and what I think what you said there about compound gains, those compound improvements over time. That's what I really, really like about this.
Yeah, there's a good example of that. I think I read somewhere you make a 1% gain every day for the year, and you're 32x ahead by the end of the year, more or less. I'd have to check my math, but sounds
Yeah,
about right.
I know the exact I know the curve. Yeah, that's exactly it. Okay, so this is the standard Foglight, multiple databases. We're adding databases all the time, and I think on the far right we have a new one that you're hiding.
There it is. We've just recently added Snowflake monitoring, and it plugs in just like everything else.
Snowflake, Redis, loving it. Yeah, fantastic. Great. Darren, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to finish up with, or?
Like I tell my customers, I'm learning new things about Foglight even every day after 20 plus years. There is a lot more, and if you'd like to know more, just reach out to us. We'd be happy to show you more.
Well, thank you again, Darren. For your time, you're very generous, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you again.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.